Excellent. Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to get started. I think we are recording, so remember we are recording. So welcome to everyone today. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Suman Kapoor. I am CEO of Well Balanced Solutions, where I'm a coach and a consultant. I empower women leaders and teams to create purposeful and effective communication. And I'm joined here today by my dear friend, Tiffany Castagno, who's CEO of Sefer LLC, and she helps small to medium businesses build their cultures. Just a couple of housekeeping things. Today's our last episode for 2020. We are pausing on December 25th and January 1st. But we'll be hitting the ground running on January 8th, so keep an eye out on social media for the updates. The session is being recorded. We will post our replay on YouTube. And please, Tiffany and I have worked very hard, as you all know, to create this safe space to have some of these difficult conversations. So please be respectful. If you have comments or questions, you're more than welcome to ask them. If you're not comfortable, please use the chat. We love engaging conversation, as those of you who have joined us before know. That makes all the difference in the world in these conversations. Tiffany, anything else before we move on?
No, just thanks for being here, Team Live and Team Replay. So love watching this waiting room always fill up, and we love seeing your faces, even if you're off camera. So thanks, Suman, for kicking us off.
Absolutely. So Tiffany and I are so grateful today to have Jackson join us. He is a gifted conversationalist and inspirational speaker with a heart for fathers. He focuses on leading where you live and helping fathers to live fully engaged and fully alive. He eagerly integrates his educational, military, and entrepreneurial experience to develop men to elevate, lead, and manage the complexities of ever-changing organizations and family dynamics. He's an Army vet and a university professor. In 2013, get a load of this, people, he was honored and recognized by the National Father's Day Council alongside President Bill Clinton and Terry Lundgren, former CEO of Macy's, during the National Father of the Year Award. He is married to my dear friend, Shadana, and together they raise an amazing group of 5 children who they call 5 Arrows, and they raise these children intentionally and purposefully. So first I wanted to thank Jackson for his service, but a special shout out and thank you to Shadana. People need to understand that families of military personnel really sacrifice a lot. And so to the entire Drumgoole family, my thanks for all you do for this country and for its people. So thank you very much, Jackson. I appreciate you very much. And I'm going to pass it on to you. I'd love to get a sense from you as to this topic, what it was that interested you in studying. I believe it's your dissertation, School to Prison Pipeline. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. I mean, beyond words, humbled. Can everyone hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up. Got me okay? As interested as you are to hear from me, I'm more honored and interested to hear from you all, because I love being in an environment of what I consider progressive thinkers to kind of help me noodle this problem. As you mentioned, yeah, I'm completing this dissertation on the school to prison pipeline and the disproportionate punishment shown towards Blacks in particular. But I believe that there's a disruptor there called advocacy or empathy. And it's kind of interesting how I got into this space of academia. There were 3 words that actually sparked this. Can anybody guess what those 3 words are? Nobody. Do I have one? Is there one? Is there one? I hate school. Those 3 words. Now, I heard this from probably 3 of my 5 kids. I heard it from my now 25-year-old. He plays arena football, but when he was a little boy, he said the same thing. He came home, I hate school. Then my 16-year-old daughter, I hate school. And then my now 12-year-old son, I hate school. And so, of course, you ask those 5 questions, why, and why. And by the time you get to the fifth why, you get down to the answer. You know, the teachers don't like me. Well, I'll be honest with you, family, that bothered me because those are the same three words that I threw out. I hate school. You know, I grew up in Georgia, in the rural South, and went to a school that was recently integrated. And so you had, on one side of the hallway, you had white students, and on the other side, you had Black students. And every day I was ushered to a janitor's closet, a little oversized janitor's closet, where I ended up watching TV. I watched Family Feud, I watched Price is Right and General Hospital with some of the teachers. And I thought it was cool. So I didn't go to my mom and explain and fuss and fight. I just say, hey, these are other brown kids in this janitor's closet, and we're watching TV all day. No big deal. Again, everything to a child is normal. And again, I knew my parents, they were hard workers. They both worked 2 jobs apiece to take care of us. And so they probably weren't as efficacious as some others. They weren't as sophisticated, and they actually trusted the school system to take care of us. So if it didn't bother them, it didn't bother me. But I didn't notice until about 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade that I was behind everyone else. And it was a couple of teachers. I can probably name them. I can see their faces right now. Miss Miller, Mr. Cunningham, Miss Williams. But it was one specific teacher. She was actually the librarian. Her name was Brenda Holmes. Brenda Holmes said, listen, I want you to come to the library every day at this time, 3:30 every day. And you stay in here with me until about 9:30 at night. And I'm going to show you how you learn. And so for years, she sat me in that library. And every day I walk in, she would say, what do you want to learn today? What do you want to learn today? And I said, well, I want to learn about this subject or this subject. And she would show me through that card catalog. You remember anybody remember old card catalogs? Raise your hand if you remember old card catalogs. Okay, I got some vets on here. I like that. I got some vets. I got some family on here. I'm not alone. Those old card catalogs, she taught me my unique learning style. She told me I can learn anything. And she opened up the world of entrepreneurship to me. She opened up the world of freedom, because guess what? If you can open up a book, then no one can close your life away. No one can close any doors on you. And so I am my first case study, and my experiences are my references. And from this point on, I will continue to scour the earth to find individuals just like me and try to help liberate them with every fiber of my being. So that's what kind of got me in this space, family.
That's awesome. Sorry, I was struggling with my mute. I don't know why this is a thing for me lately. This is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And clearly your passion comes through, and this is a reason that you wanted to be here today. We're so grateful, not only for your what you're doing, but also your military service. You have so many accolades behind you. I'm like intimidated over here. So, and Suman speaks very highly of you and the family. There is such power in the family unit, and there's such power in the Black family unit. And so I am loving just hearing all about this, and looking forward to us continuing this conversation today. Suman, you want to add anything? I'll put myself back on mute.
I was struggling with my mute button, but Jackson, you're absolutely right. It really just takes that one teacher to make a huge positive impact. Ideally, it would be every teacher, but we're not quite there, and I'm not sure why. But I'm curious, with this topic, this school to prison pipeline, what was it that brought you to that as your dissertation?
Well, I mean, frankly, I worked with, like I said, over the decades, we talked before, over the decades, I've owned daycare centers and different other, youth organizations. And so what I saw was these brilliant young people. Can I be frank with you? I think some of the most brilliant people are in 3 places: the penitentiary, the military, and the cemetery. I've been in 2 of I've been in 2 of the 3. All right, military and brilliant people. Say again.
We just had to mute someone. Can I pause you just for 1 second? Only because when you said, "Can you be frank?" That I just have to share, since we're talking about family, that really touched my heart, because my late father would always say, "Can I be frank?" His name was Michael, and he would say, "Can I be frank?" instead of Michael. So I just had to share that little nugget with you all. That just warmed my heart.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So again, thanks so much, Tiffany. Thanks so much. But I do want to pause for a second, and I didn't do this earlier, and I need to do this. This is very important. Again, like I said before, as much as you all think you're here to hear from me, I really, really, really need to hear from you all, and I want to hear from you all. So can I ask, if you can, if you're not at your office right now, and you can talk, can you tell me, where you're from, what's your background, and what brings you to this subject? And can I start with Debbie? If you're able to talk, Debbie, can you share with me?
I am here because most recently I worked in an environment that has very little diversity. And moving forward, I'm interested in having a better impact on hiring, recruiting, diversification, a sense of belonging with people that generally do not feel like they belong in certain places. And it's the biases that could be race-related or other topics that are less obvious, but definitely biases.
Beautiful, beautiful, Debbie. Thank you so much. Can I drop down to Scott Cross?
Thank you. It's odd. I already feel a kinship with you. I'm a lifetime military man. I did 20 years in the U.S. Army. Is retired a warrant officer in human resources, and right now I'm working in the private sector in human resources. I'm passionate about diversity and inclusion. I'm an HR business partner, so I get to talk to and work with executives in the company and leverage diversity and inclusion as a strategy. And I'm also extremely passionate about fatherhood, all things fatherhood, and so yeah, that's what brought me to this show. So I feel like I already know you, Jackson. So looking forward to the rest of the session.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate that, man. We'll definitely connect. Dwayne, if you're able to.
Oh, hello. I'm so looking forward to this, Jackson. My background is I've been in mental health for over 30 years, and I've been a domestic violence therapist for the last 17. So I've always been working with court-ordered clients or the folks who came potentially voluntarily and managed to avoid the cops. I thought that was interesting to say the three most people are in the military, penitentiary, or the cemetery, and boy, I know where the hell that comes from. And it's why I'm trying to make an impact, not only with the adults I work with, but I'm now trying to get stuff into schools to get this into their hands and get this into their heads so they can avoid the pitfalls in programming they already received.
Yes.
And what I've come to develop as a theory around what you're talking about and referring to is I've met some really intelligent people who did not grow up in a home environment where you could mentally and emotionally focus. Academics were not a priority because of the self-esteem issues of the parent who never had an education themselves.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in the Black community, we understand that that comes from being enslaved and not educated forever.
Yes.
And so it's trying to teach people how they can overcome themselves and overcome their pasts and create a path that they thought was really kind of a Hollywood script and a fairy tale.
Yes.
How to believe in themselves. But they're great with their hands.
That's right. There's so many different learning patterns, so many ways, kinesthetic learning. We all know this stuff now, but again, like I say, if parents aren't confident enough, if parents aren't efficacious enough, they're not credentialed, they're not educated, and it's very difficult for them to pass that on. So that's why we need this community. Dwayne, thank you so much.
And so lastly, the penitentiary part there, or the cemetery part there, was that since nobody, I like to joke, I can count on one hand the number of people that I met who went to the library instead of the keg party on Friday and Saturday night to get away from their abusive home.
Yeah, come on.
And I'm pretty sure if we had zero domestic violence, we'd have zero street gangs.
Brother, I'm telling you, you are all in my presentation. Oh, get out of my presentation, Dwayne. Get out of there.
Obviously, we're on it. All right, man. Pass you on.
Thank you, man. Tom, I respect you, sir. Elizabeth, if you can't, just a brief, where you from, background, what brought you here today?
Sure, I'm happy to. I am a FOS, otherwise known as a friend of Suman. So that's why I started here. I stay here because I learn something every week. I'm inspired every week. I'm very, selfishly, it brings my week to a really wonderful conclusion where it may not have been. And I'm just excited to learn something new today and, you know, hopefully contribute from that learning in some other aspect of my life.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for stopping by. Is that Catherine? Did I pronounce that right? Catherine? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I have spent about 30 years working in human rights, mostly outside the United States. But I'm also, for the last 10 years, I've been in recruiting. And so these two sort of intersect for me, you know, an interest in worker rights, an interest in combating discrimination, increasing diversity. It's part of the role that I have in my job, but it's also been a long time interest and passion of mine.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Tracy, are you able to speak? If not, no worries. Nothing heard. Should I go across Nikolai? Okay.
I'm a friend of Tiffany's, FOT.
I get it. I like it. I like it. Hey, get some FOJs, man. Come on.
But I work a lot with I work a lot with team dynamics and just teams in general. Me and my business partner, that's what we focus on, is not individuals, but how do you operate and function within your companies and within your teams. But I keep coming back. Similarly, it's every week is a new perspective on this conversation about race, but also this conversation on humanity. And I think that's the most moving is every time I leave, I do get something for myself, but I also am able to get another perspective for how to just be a better human and show up in the workplace, in my family, in my friendships. And I just really appreciate there's not really a space like this anywhere else where you're able to just be raw, open, and then continue just to ask questions and get uncomfortable. So grateful for this space and Tiffany and Suman for hosting this every single week. It really is a highlight for me to close out my week. I'm on vacation this week and I'm still here because I love it so much.
Likewise, like, man, dude, bro, isn't it, but just for a quick second, isn't it a great place to end the year like this with like-minded individuals? Tiffany, Suman, thank you so much for putting this together. My gosh, you guys are beautiful, beautiful. Cheryl, are you able to speak?
Hi, I certainly am. Do you hear me?
Fine.
Okay. So I am here because I am fortunate enough to work within talent acquisition and diversity, inclusion, and belonging, with an emphasis on the B, as a profession, which is also my passion. I was introduced to this group through Gail Gleckel, lucky enough to find it. This is my first session joining, so I hope the series doesn't end, but really looking forward to engaging with my peers and just other interested parties in this region to see how we can move the needle and really impact some change.
Awesome, thank you so much. Tracy, are you able to speak? If not, no worries. Nothing heard. Tracy, Ms. Linda?
Oh yeah, sorry. I hit the chat instead of the.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, I had to step away. Do you want me to just introduce myself?
Yeah, please. Introduce yourself, your background, and you know what brought you to this forum today.
Well, I know and love Tiffany, and I've had this on my calendar forever, and I really want to. I'm trying to learn and grow and connect with others, and I normally am completely unavailable at this time slot, and I thought I was hyper available. Now I'm a tiny bit available, so I wanted to pop in and say hi. And I'm going to try to, in 2021, assuming you're continuing, kind of adjust my schedule so I can make more of these, because I really need to challenge myself and grow. So yes, we're recording our podcast Yes. So I should have said I'm the Chief People Officer for the Granite Group. We're a wholesaler located in New England, and we've got 46 locations all over New England. And I do a few other things on the side, including that podcast, and Tiffany's going to be on it soon. So I'm rambling. I'll stop now, but it's nice to be here, and I hope to join many more in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Tracy. Linda.
Good morning, Jackson. Thank you so much for having me here. I brought my daughter with me. She flew in for the holidays from across the pond. So thanks for having us here today. I am a leader in healthcare technology, and I'm here because I want to make sure that as I'm showing up at work to advance women in healthcare technology in particular, that I'm bringing my sisters of color with me. And I want to understand how to better show up to do that. And I got connected to this group through Tiffany on LinkedIn. I consider her part of the tribe now, and I'm so happy to be part of hers. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And tell your daughter hello for us. Gail? Gail, nothing heard. Daniel?
Yes, hi there. Hi, Jackson. I'm 25 from Italy. And yeah, I'm here to learn, but also to support this amazing conversation. I've been here since, almost the beginning with Tiffany and Suman. So I'm really happy to learn every week about many different issues related to race and diversity. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, man. Big ups to Italy. Gail? Nothing heard from Gail. Christina.
Hey there. I am also a friend of Tiffany, and we connected on LinkedIn. I work in HR as an HR business partner, and just looking to learn from everyone, and I'm super, interested in how we can embed more diverse, equitable, and inclusive practices in HR.
Awesome, awesome. Lastly, Tyrone, are you there?
I am. Yep, thank you. Tyrone Robinson from the Philadelphia area, owner of Opportunities to Serve, where I primarily help entrepreneurs start businesses and business owners fix and save and scale and grow their businesses. I am here as a FOS. This is, I think, my second chat. So, just looking forward to continuing to support Suman and conversations that are obviously necessary. And just really trying to lend myself to support others in this space.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you again. Again, I just want to take a moment to, first of all, acknowledge you and all of your expertise, but to how I can best tailor this talk, so you get something out of it. But more importantly, I want to find out where you guys are from, because you guys are going to inform a lot of my work going forward. And I can tap into you so we can help serve the greater community. Is that okay? Can we get something from each other here? Can this be a mutual reciprocity? Can we, oh, there we go. I got some thumbs up. I like that. So for today, let's just establish a quick baseline when we talk about the school to prison pipeline. Just to establish a baseline to throw some definitions out at you. So school to prison pipeline is typically a term that signifies the roles of schools and educators play in putting certain students, typically Black students, Black and brown students, on pathways into the criminal justice system. Can we agree to that? Okay. When we talk about zero tolerance policies, has anyone ever heard that term before? Zero tolerance policies in school. Dwayne, I see you nod, I see some thumbs up over there. So the term zero tolerance policy is a one size fits all punishment. Again, typically Black and brown students are on the disproportionate end of that. You're talking about where a 7-year-old is suspended for shaping his or her candy bar in the shape of a gun. You're talking about 2 days of a teenager spent in youth development center just for talking back, or a 4-year-old throwing a tantrum and getting suspended from school for 8 times in 1 year. It's those types of zero tolerance policies where there's no leniency at all granted to the school. If the child does something, get them out of here. So have you everybody heard about that? Yeah. So the next term is called advocacy. And again, we all know what advocacy means, but when it comes to teacher advocacy as a practice is relatively in its early stages, but it's best described as teachers having an interest in ensuring their students' well-being and that students having access to equal education. So that's what we mean when we talk about advocacy in educating. Now, the last term that I want to bring into the introduce is empathy. And Suman and I had a great conversation about this yesterday, and I see Dwayne, nodding his head, and I'm telling you, I'm gonna tap into you. I'm gonna tap into you, brother. Don't you be nodding your head. I'm tapping into you on this empathy piece. On empathy in education, it means to champion the culture of another. Literally to step into, it's a German word, but it means to step into the life of another person. And that's something that I would love for us to get towards, for our administrators and all the stakeholders involved in this, to step into the life of a young person. And so that they will disrupt, naturally, organically disrupt that school to prison pipeline. Is that okay? All right, let me throw some quick facts at you. Last year alone, 1.2 million Black students were suspended from K-12 schools across the United States. Now, Black students only accounted for 15.5% of all public school students. However, they represented over 40% of school suspensions. Over 40%. That's a huge overrepresentation. Don't you all agree? A huge overrepresentation. And what we find out is that students who are suspended from school are more likely to drop out. And those dropouts will more likely end up with a criminal record within 1 month. Within 1 month. I see some head. Tom, I see you shaking. I see you nodding your head. You're all over it. Now, this is disproportionately impacting Black students. So this is what we mean when we talk about, this is the practical rubber meets the road when we talk about the school to prison pipeline, that is disproportionately impacting Black and brown students, specifically young men. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But here's a question I have for you all. Why are we treating Black kids this way? What kind of perceptions are out there regarding Black kids, Black boys, Black girls? There was a study, I think Yale conducted this study. And what they did was they brought in a bunch of 8-year-olds, so third graders, put them in a classroom, and individually they allowed educators, K-12 educators, white, Black, Asian, all of them. And they said, one by one, just sit here and observe these students. Got a Black kid over there, white kid over there, Mexican, Puerto Rican, just all these little 8-year-old kids interacting at the table. Here's what we want you to do for us. We want you to identify problem behavior and just identify and just put a mark by the child who is displaying disruptive behavior, okay? Out of all the teachers, out of all the samples, every last one of these teachers picked the Black boy. Researchers came back and said, he did absolutely nothing wrong. We just wanted to see what you saw. So why are we picking on Black boys? Well, I'll tell you what, researchers also show that 80% of the teachers today are white women. Nothing against white women. This is not a critical race theory or hate whitey anything here. This is just an observation. This is just talking about systemic racism. This is talking about the negative narratives that are out there against African Americans across the scale, across the scope. But researchers also examined teachers' perception of loss of classroom control coupled with fear as a leading factor on who is identified and dismissed in the classroom. Studies show that Black boys specifically are seen as less innocent and are more culpable and guilty. And they're seen older, they say. Matter of fact, there was a Georgetown study. Some of my ladies in the room will probably lose it when you hear this stuff. Black girls need less nurturing, according to this study. Black girls need less protection, according to this study. Black girls need to be supported less. Black girls as early as 9 years old are seen as knowing more about sex and adult issues. In fact, they see 9-year-old Black girls as 21-year-olds. I have 3 daughters and 2 sons, my 5 arrows. 3 daughters, 2 sons, 16-year-old, 2 12-year-olds. If I ever see a grown man approach any one of my daughters, it's gonna be some furniture moving, that's all I gotta say. And I'm sure it'll be the same thing in your household. It's gonna be some furniture moving. But more importantly, this is how they're seen in society, according to the studies. Now, this can have far-reaching implications. not just in the streets, not just in the classrooms, but throughout life, where Black girls and Black boys are no longer protected and no longer seen as children. They don't get the same rights. They don't get the same release to just make mistakes. I'm going to ask a question. How many of you got into a fight as a kid growing up? Catherine, no fights. You can't. Catherine, you cannot throw those hands. You tell me you can't.
I'm a pacifist. I don't fight. I run.
So you got into a fight growing up?
Plus, I'm only 5 feet tall.
Oh, okay, yeah. You learn how to negotiate. You're right. You better learn how to negotiate.
But actually, Jackson, what you're talking about is interesting, okay? I was the short, skinny kid. I had no fighting prowess. I didn't have siblings to fight with. I didn't throw down with my cousins and not the kids in the neighborhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
My dad, I think, was the thug when he was a kid. And so his advice when there was some issues around middle school in the 70s, and yeah, his advice was, take them into the toilet, take them in the bathroom, shove their head in the toilet, and they'll never mess with you again. And I'm like, hey, you have no idea how that does not match my personality.
Exactly.
Just does not match my personality whatsoever. So yeah, it's, but men are taught that they have to fight to protect themselves, defend their honor, and never back down from a challenge.
Exactly. And we want to get away from that. We want to get away from that narrative. And I ask about the fighting piece because that happens on the playground. However, today, as soon as it happens, they'll take the Black boy, usher him away, and they'll offer. And again, this is just a study. These are just the studies. And they'll take the white child, and they'll send him to psychiatric training or counseling. Black kid, you go here with the resource officer. White child, you probably need some therapy because you acted out a little bit. Okay. Do you see the differences there? You see the differences there. So why does this matter? Why does this matter? Well, of course, it hurts the child and it robs him or her of an educational opportunity and the opportunity to contribute to society. 2, it disrupts the family. I don't know if anybody here has ever had anybody go to jail, but when that family member's in jail, guess what? You're behind bars with them. Did anybody disagree with that? Number 3, it hurts the communities. And that's that piece we hadn't dug into as much as I'd like, because when we see that it's a we problem, then it doesn't become a me problem. But it hurts the community. There's some scholars there at Columbia University, and they coined a phrase called the $1 million blocks. Has anybody heard about that? The $1 million blocks. And that's referring to inner cities in New York, Chicago, and New Orleans, and those cities where residents and taxpayers are spending millions of dollars keeping former residents in prison. They're maintaining the neighborhoods full of households missing their key breadwinners, and families who must support now the families who, guess what? When those guys get out of jail, they will not be able to get a job. They'll be underemployed forever unless they do some other creative things. There's some other ways, of course, and we can get into those later. But why even go there? So there are multiple layers at stake here. So that's why this is important. Any questions? Can I pause there for questions or comments?
Jackson, I have an uncle who I've never met because since I was born, he's been in prison.
Wow.
I've had a couple conversations with him, and all I really know him is through the stories of my aunts and uncles and grandparents. And what I do know about him, he's one of these people that's tremendously talented, smart, creative. He can fix anything with his hands. And when you mention the community, I think about it not only from a monetary standpoint, as you mentioned, but also from a talent standpoint. And the African-American community, as you know, is abundantly talented.
Yes. And
that talent has been exploited and continues to be exploited and captured and misused and misparaphrased in this case that we're talking about, jail. So from a talent perspective, I look at my community and they're losing their artists, they're losing their artisans, they're losing their engineers, they're losing their musicians to way too early, to captivity, to jail, to drugs, to, you pick the poison and it's been injected into our community and the talent has been extracted. So I completely like that. The monetary piece to me is, and no offense to your presentation, is the bare minimum that we're losing. That's the money can be replaced. Talent is much harder. And so that's the part I was like thinking about when you were speaking to the loss to the community. Thank you.
Yeah. And I tell you, no, Scott, very good point. I definitely respect that. And so, no, I love that. I totally agree with you on that piece. When I approach it from an economic standpoint, here's what I do then. I have to make this, I don't have to, but make it, why is it important to you? Why is it important to someone outside of our community? Why is it important to you? Because again, unless they see it as a value added for them, and I will go and take the covers off this thing. The piece called the critical race theory that we talked about earlier, which simply states that folks will not change it unless it absolutely benefits them. And so when you bring a monetary piece to it, and they realize, hold on, this is impacting me, because otherwise it's not really impacting them. It's not their children, it's not their brothers, it's not their uncles. But when they realize, hold on, I'm paying taxes for this, let's fix this problem. Let's fix this problem, because I need as many hands on deck to fix this problem. It's not saying that that's not important, but I need as many hands on deck to fix this problem. And so I want to offer as many layers to this as possible. Show, hey, this is, when you start doing your web design, you realize, hey, this touches you, this touches you, this touches you. As Suman and I were talking about yesterday, we're also interconnected, but we don't realize. When I look on this screen here, I see folks from all over the world, all over the United States, and I realize how interconnected we are. And they're all connected to FOSs and FOTs. You guys are all connected. And so I want to make sure that stays intact. But thanks so much, Scott. Any other comments?
So I have a question, Jackson.
Yeah.
So, nowadays teachers are social workers. They're also your psychiatrists. They're your mentors. They carry so much weight on their shoulders. How can we add, and this is an important weight for them to carry, but then how do we change this dialogue? How can they turn to these advocates that we need for them to be when they have so much already on their plates?
How can we? Well, of course, there's training, but more than just training, we talk about that empathy piece. I would love for the educators, again, to walk in the shoes of the child, because again, no teacher comes to school wanting a disruptive class. All right, she doesn't want that. That's not what he or she is looking for. They're trying to get this information out there. So I would continuously challenge educators to challenge their own pedagogy, to challenge their own methods of teaching. I challenge them to continue to grow. Case in point, I said, I'm an associate professor at a couple of colleges, right? I get off work from my uniform and from my 9 to 5 in my uniform. I put on my shirt and tie, whatever the case may be, and I go stand in front of a classroom of adult learners. I have to realize, first of all, that these are other adult learners. They're tired. They've been working all day. They got 5 and 6 kids, whatever the case may be, and they're tired. I'm not going to keep them in class, though the syllabus says I need to keep them in class from 7:30 at night to 9:30 to ram this information in them. I'm doing everything I can to find out, what do you need to know to get this coursework done? What do you need to know? What information do you need to know? And I'm going to give you that information. And when you get that information, as Scott knows, we don't train the time, we train the standard, right? So once you make the standard, I'm going to get you out of there. And that's just adjusting my method of teaching. And again, that's just from my level. And I understand that teaching K through 12, not to mention elementary school, is far more difficult. But same thing, the policy needs to adjust somewhat to allow teachers more room and more space to make those adjustments. And I think it's happening in certain schools, but I would challenge them to continue to adjust their methods of teaching.
Thank you. So it's a lot to unpack, that's for sure.
It is. It is. But here's the thing. You know, we're expecting microwave solutions for crock pot problems. This, you like that? I'll let y'all settle on that one. Y'all settle on that.
But it marinates.
Let it marinate. For an additional cooking metaphor, right? but these are not microwave solutions. You know, these issues have been. We're talking about an education system that we all can say needs to be restructured. Right? I mean, case in point. And I know this is off topic a little bit, but my children are learning from home right now, right? Most of our children are probably learning from home. So from this point on, we need to look at whether or not children actually need to be in the classroom for 8, 9, 10 hours. If they can get it done in 3 hours and then go do some practical application at some time in the day, will that work? We have to relook at that. So again, that's just one portion of it. And then how our parents adjusting with this, how our teachers adjusting with this. We're in a melting pot right now. We are in a crock pot right now. We can literally say, okay, what do we need to add to this to benefit our youth going forward? But I think it's not a bad place that we're in. Like I say, never let a good pandemic go to waste.
But you know, Jackson, it's interesting you talk about 3 hours versus the 8 hours in school. In our county here right now, there's a real push. You know, you've got the polarized parents, some parents who want their kids to stay home because of the pandemic, and others who are really pushing hard to open schools. And unscientific, but just based on my really quick observation, those who are pushing to open the schools are talking mental health, but also these are working parents, right? So they're struggling to keep their kids. It's almost like some parents look at schools as daycare centers. And I think it goes back to a lot of what you talk about with that parent involvement, as well as the teacher involvement, but it's the whole unit. It's everyone. This phrase again, it takes a village, right? And it really does take a village to get these kids so they're not in this pipeline. So we can start to change the conversation. And then yesterday you and I spoke, it's really also teaching the children, your first reaction isn't, I'm gonna fight, or I'm so angry, I'm gonna hit you, or how do we teach our children other tools in their toolboxes rather than let me just jump from one to the other. But it's also understanding their story.
So good point. So let's talk about some of the solutions. Let's talk about some of the solutions real quick. I mean, first of all, if we understand, and I really want to tap into you and Dwayne on this piece. Some of our children, again, I'm a soldier, 20-something years, Scott, some of my other service folks on here. We've been in war, but we've been trained. Right? We've been inculcated in a system preparing us to fight. Some of these young people between 5 and 8 years old, whatever the case may be, they're going to school. By the time they wake up in the morning to the time they get to school, they've been inundated with pornography, with alcoholism, with abuse, with drugs, and all these different issues. Now, let me give you a quick definition of PTSD if I can find it real quick. Post-traumatic stress disorder, it develops in response to exposure to a traumatic event where an individual feels extremely fearful, horrified, or helpless. Now, again, I can kind of hide some stuff and tuck some things away, but I have some tools to do that. I'm sure some of us have tools to do that. An 8-year-old doesn't. A 5-year-old doesn't. They don't have the wherewithal to be able to compartmentalize certain things. They don't have the wherewithal to do these things. And so, first of all, understanding the unique children that we teach is one thing. Okay, so, but when you talk about this, when we fast forward to solutions, which, now, and I love what some counties are doing this restorative justice piece, you know, where they're equipping parents, they're equipping teachers, they're equipping students with the tools for behavior modification. You know, one of the things that my wife and I do, like I said, we founded the Drumgoole Family Initiatives, where we help parents and we teach them how to engage and how to interact with schools and administrators. Because again, some administrators can be kind of bougie, family. I mean, some teachers can be kind of bougie, and they can be, you know, and so they're talking down to these parents, the single parent who's working 2 jobs trying to make it. And so someone needs to build that relational trust between the two in order to take care of little Malik or little Johnny or little Timmy. Also, another solution is helping students to develop those social, emotional, and conflict resolution skills in order to de-escalate problems. These are not just classroom skills, family. These are life skills. I mean, this is stuff you will use for the rest of your life, but they're not being taught at home. Like I say again, when I work with fathers, I do teach fathers how to lead where you live, how to take all the things that we've learned through our MBAs or through our military training or our corporate training, how to take all of that and do it at the dining room table. How do you debrief your children at home? How do you find out what they need to know? How do you prepare them, for a life, for the life they live? Whereas, how do you help them to develop or to discover, develop, and deploy their gifts? How do you help them to find, follow, and finish their God-given purpose in life? We always develop mission statements and vision statements for our companies, for our organizations, but how many of you, and I will ask you this, don't you gotta raise your hand, you gotta look to the left, to the right, but how many of you have a vision statement or a mission statement for your home, for your family? Don't make yourself, don't look to the left, to the right. I just asked a question. Don't feel condemned. But that's the family is the first organization. Everything outside this house bleeds from that. And so I consider families or fathers are the foundation of the families. I say we are, and I got it. Women give birth, but men give seed. And so we need one another to raise a family. Suman, I know she's looking at me, she's gonna fight me in a minute. she's gonna fight me in a minute. I know you are, Suman, but I still believe that fathers are the foundation of the family. You gotta have a strong father. And mothers are amazing, wives are amazing. I got it, trust me. I got a beautiful wife downstairs. She's down there teaching a bunch of, she teaches first graders right now. So she's online teaching first graders. My wife is brilliant. She's an amazing woman. But I'm telling you, fathers are the foundation. So guys, we can disrupt the school to prison pipeline one relationship at a time, and one conversation at a time. Are there any questions, any comments, any concerns? I'm yours right now.
There was a question in the chat. Oh, I found it. Thank you, Daniele. What is the role of group dynamics in the school to prison pipeline for Black students? What can educators do to help students face the peer pressure to behave in a certain way?
Yeah. Hey, great question. And again, like I say, even if you don't, I know Suman talked yesterday about it. She teaches conflict resolution, correct? So how can we do that on a larger scale? Suman, I like to bring you into this conversation. I told you I would, and I'm doing it now. How to bring an organization like yours into the school system to teach educators, first of all, how to de-escalate situations in the classroom, and then how to teach conflict resolution and negotiation and mediation to kids. What would that look like?
Yeah, so it really does start, it's a holistic package. So not only are you working with teachers and administrators, but these skills also have to be taught to the students, right? So once everyone it's almost like leveling the playing field. Once everyone understands the different terms and how do you manage through these various conflicts, then we're all on the same starting point and we can move forward that way. But it really is pushing these initiatives, and funding is such a hard, I think for schools, especially public schools, the funding is the biggest obstacle and the biggest barrier. And so it's a matter of trying to make it a priority on top of everything else that's a priority. But I think if everyone takes a step back and looks at it from the big picture, if our students and our teachers understand conflict resolution, understand and has these skills, then that's going to trickle down and really get rid of a lot of the challenges that are already happening in the school systems. But we keep putting Band-Aids over Band-Aids over Band-Aids that we're not ready to look at it from that big point of view.
Good point. And Scott, that's what we're talking about. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier. Like we used to do, you got to follow the money. Find out where the money is, and because the money really is, it's the gatekeeper in a lot of these cases. The programs are there. I believe the desire is there. Like I said, it's not a will problem, it's a skill problem. But more importantly, it's a bill problem. Folks don't want to foot the bill for a lot of this stuff. And if we show them how money could be saved in a lot of these cases, then boom, they'll want to solve this problem. I truly don't believe that we have, and there may be a secret, sinister society somewhere out there that's just pulling all these strings. But I believe that when I look at this screen here, I see people that truly want to change, they truly want to help the environment, they truly want to help these students. And so I believe that, like Suman said, the training is available, but we have to pull some of those purse strings to make it happen.
Yep. And actually, I think that goes really well with this question that's listed here, which says, is there an opportunity for people like me, older white women, to somehow mentor and engage meaningfully with specifically at risk youth? So I'm wondering, again, because money is so tight, people who are here, go to your school systems, go and say, I'm willing to be a mentor for free. I can sit and I can teach or talk to your students about conflict resolution, negotiation. What are these skills? Or even just be a sounding board. A lot of times students need someone to help them de-escalate. Hey, I've got a problem with so-and-so and I'm ready to just take my fist to that person. All right, let's talk about it. All right, let's take a step back, right? It's almost like, I can't think of any other analogy right now except AA. So when you feel like you need to take a drink, you call your sponsor, right? So the same, you getting ready to throw down some punches, you call your mentor. You get in touch with somebody who's going to de-escalate that situation. But I think that this conversation goes to that question, what can we all do here?
Yes.
We can get involved in the school systems for free.
Hey, Suman,
Yes.
and Jackson, just a thought as you're talking, and all of this, the money, the conflict resolution, it's all, like, I think, important parts of a huge equation that we're trying to solve. And so the part, though, that I struggle with, and I've seen this in business, is conflict resolution is a temporary solution until you if the problem is deeper than just conflict, right? If there's a cultural aspect to the conflict that you don't perceive, for example, a manager with associates who are from different countries, for example, right? And there's a conflict that rises from that cultural difference. The conflict resolution is only going to temporarily solve the problem until you understand the underlying factors that cause that problem to arise. So it ends up being, whack-a-mole. It's going to go away now, but it's going to come back later. So how do you interject that level of understanding when you say, conflict resolution, for example, a teacher's got like 30 kids. How do you go beyond just solving the problem? Because I don't want my teachers stressed because they're solving the same problems today that they were solving tomorrow. I want you helping my child like further their education and not. So does that make sense?
Yeah, and to your point, like I say, it is a crop problem. Meaning, so Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, first chapter, he talks about desire being the beginning of everything. There has to be a want. So the educators have to want justice for the child. They have to want to care. And I again, deep inside, I really believe they do. They have to, first of all, want to care. But there are multiple layers to this thing. To your point, the family structure has to be there, or if not an actual mother and father, there has to be, an organization, Boys and Girls Club, Boy Scouts, or whatever, or Girl Scouts, the coach. How many of us can literally say, or we know of professional football players, basketball players, baseball players that didn't have a natural father in their life, but their coach became their dad. You see that all the time. And I'll tell you, again, I was raised here in Augusta, Georgia. I didn't interact with a white person until probably I went to the military. It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. So I was frightened to death to deal with white men. And until white men came into my life and said, Jack, I remember being deployed one time and one colonel, he put his hand on my shoulder, Jack, why are you scared of me? I said, sir, I'm not scared of you. Yes, you are. I can just tell you are. And so he sat down, we had lunch, and we ended up becoming the best of friends. And most of the opportunities that I've had between that time and now have been from white men, folks outside of my race, wrapping their arms around me and saying, hey, I see something in you. So again, it takes a holistic village, takes a holistic approach. And there's not just, there won't be just one thing to fix this. It takes every last one of us.
Yep, I agree with that. And I think also, see, if you deal with the one issue that's happening, don't just stop there. Come back to it, and come back and say, okay, so I understand that this was maybe the conflict or the conversation we had was around this specific culture. Let me learn from you, right? And so like Jackson was saying, it's not just one and go. It's one, and now let me learn from that. Let me dive deeper into it. And I know, and it goes back to the statement I made earlier, where we have so much on our teachers' shoulders. But I feel like if we get to the conversations and dig deeper into these understandings, so much of the upper level stuff will disappear. But we have to be able to find the time, the ability, the money, and the desire, like Jackson was saying, the true desire and passion to want to learn from our students, about our students, so that we can teach them in a manner that's inclusive.
Yes, yes. It's the whole, again, it goes back to the empathy piece. It's literally entering into the life of someone else. But again, it starts with that desire. You guys know Dr. David Livermore. I think he's the founder of the Cultural Intelligence School. But that's his whole basis right there. The whole CQ piece. We know about EQ, we know about AQ, we know about IQ, but not many of us really focus on that CQ portion, that cultural intelligence, come into the lives of other people. And that's so important these days, not just working in other cultures, but just you can be the same race, but be from California, another one from Georgia, and completely different language, talking past each other. You know, we always hear that language is a two-way street. No, it's not. It's a one-way street. We have to be going in the same direction, talking about the same thing, with the same thing in mind, same goal in mind. It's not a two-way street. We'll talk past each other. We need to be talking with each other, communicating with each other. Any other questions in the chat?
A lot of conversation. I don't know that there are any other questions.
Hold on. In the bottom, my brother, John Howard, pastor, colonel. What's going on, sir?
God bless you. I'm sorry I'm getting into this late. I was teleworking a little bit as well. But just as something you just said, the emotional intelligence and really having that understanding, I think culturally, just to be able to reach out and not always look for, should I say, bringing your point into it, but being able also to conceptually understand what somebody else's perspective may be. Yeah. Because traveling the world, and oftentimes what we do is we try to associate an Americanized version of certain things. Yeah. The reason why I say, let me get to my point, like we have different, even though we speak the same language in this country for the most part, there are other ethnicities and so forth and other cultural perspectives, and there is no official language documented in any type of document within the United States, but we most of the time speak English. But even in that, various parts of the country, there's various dialects and so forth of English. You go to other countries, it's the same way. And I think, as was pointed out, is the importance of trying to find out how do we come of some commonality of language. How do we ensure that we are speaking the same thing and having an understanding that though we may not necessarily understand everything the same way, we can have a comprehensive discussion to where we're able to articulate not only change, but development and the ability for us to inhabit the same space, respecting one another because of the fact that you're an individual that needs to be respected, if I may look at it from that perspective.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Anybody want to jump on that one? Because I tell you, first of all, he is a true, so you have FOTs and you have FOSs, friends of Tiffany and friends of Suman. He's a friend of Jackson. He and I have traveled the world together, all over the United States, from Washington State to DC to Korea. A dear friend of mine, dear brother, we served together in both ministry and in the military, man. I'm honored, man. I'm honored. And thank you so much for chiming in. But and again, he's from a family full of educators. He's born and raised in Philadelphia. We got someone else on here from Philadelphia. I think he dropped off, but even in that arena, he is John Howard. He's a testament. He came from a pretty tough background, but he had a huge family around him. He had a lot of support around him that pulled him through. And again, I'm humbled and honored to have him as a friend and a brother. But and he's also one of my champions. He's an individual that I lean on even to today. So again, thank you so much, brother, for jumping on.
That's awesome. So kind of since we're at the top of the hour, maybe if we can take this last question and then, we can stop the recording, do our usual thing where if anyone has the ability to stay, wants to stay, we'll stay on for a little bit post recording. So if you don't mind taking one last question, and if anyone has to drop, we understand. We appreciate you all being here. So how's that sound? Good. Okay. So the question is, does the school to prison pipeline start already with the choice of enrolling in particular school? And then they said here in Italy, for example, usually people that choose technical high school show already a pattern of disrespectful and aggressive behaviors. So great question and great share. Thanks for sharing that.
That is a great question. That's a great question. Again, so we talked about finances earlier. So we all know about redlining. We know about certain neighborhoods. We know about certain tax areas. So again, this is a systemic problem that we're talking about here. So you're talking about communities going to a certain school. So would I say yes, absolutely. But can that still be disrupted? Because the teachers can teach anywhere. The students, they may be based off finances, they may be relegated to a certain school to go to. But again, you're talking about victim blaming right now. And we're not going to blame the victims. I'm not going to blame these children for choosing to go to a school that their parents can't afford to move them elsewhere. But what I can say is educators, those of us who have a desire to disrupt the school to prison pipeline can say, I want to go in that school and teach. Put me there. I want to impact there. So there's really, I say again, we can start today and we can start anywhere. So yes, absolutely. Now, and when it comes to the other question regarding the magnet schools, or not magnet schools, but the technical school piece, again, I'm a strong proponent of individuals that if you recognize early that, hey, you know what, I'm not a 4-year college individual, but I know what, I can go get me an associate degree and start making money today, become an electrician, become a plumber, I start writing code. You can immediately you start making 6 figures, or at least make a good life for yourself. So there's no shame in that at all. I prefer you do that than waste 4 years, 4 or 5 years getting a degree in something that you can't utilize. And I believe all of us can probably raise our hands and testify to that one. But did I answer the question?
Yeah, I see a nod from Daniele. No, that's awesome. And a whole lot of money too, because it's not cheap and it's only getting more expensive to get an education. And that's a whole another beast. But thank you so much for being here, Jackson. Thank you everyone who is here right now on Team Live. For those of us who had to exit on Team Live, this has been a really robust conversation. I am always so grateful to our guest speakers. So thanks again, Jackson. Thank you all for being here, and those of us on Team Replay. So this will all get posted. We're really sad that this is our last one of 2020. I don't know what we're gonna do with ourselves for 2 weeks. We might have to call each other. We do anyway, but
we do anyway.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for Suman too, for, this has been, we're coming up on, actually we just passed our 6-month anniversary on the 11th. So it's been wild that we've been doing this every week, that we have brought new faces and some familiar faces. And we are so grateful to you all for helping us grow this community. If you know someone who would like to be in this safe space and join these conversations, learn, together is better, and we're so grateful for this community. So we'll resume on January 8th with an unrecorded session. So you are free. We won't be hitting that record button. So for those of you who aren't as comfortable putting your cameras on, not saying you have to do it then, but feel free, come and just join. We want to do a check-in at the beginning of the year, see how everyone's doing, how the holidays were. And unless Suman has anything else to add, I will bid you adieu, or to stay after on the recording, and a happy holidays.
Happy holidays and best wishes for a wonderful new year. And Jackson, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you.
Bye.